Cheick Tiote was born on June 21, 1986, in Yamoussoukro, the political capital of Ivory Coast. Growing up in a country where football was more than just a game, it was a way of life. Tiote's early days were shaped by a deep love for the sport. Football was the heartbeat of the community, a way for young boys to escape the daily struggles and dream of something greater. Tiote's journey into football began as most African players do, on the dusty streets and small pitches of his hometown. In those early days, the game was played with makeshift goals and worn-out footballs, but the talent was undeniable. Even as a young boy, Cheick stood out. His ability to cover ground and his powerful physicality caught the eye of local coaches and scouts. Despite his early promise, Tiote's rise was far from easy. In a country where opportunities were limited, breaking into the professional football world was a tough challenge. However, his relentless drive and natural athleticism propelled him forward. By the time he was a teenager, Tiote was playing for a local club, a stepping stone that would lead to a bigger stage. At the age of 18, Tiote made a significant move in his career when he joined the Ivorian club ASCC Mimosas, one of the most respected football academies in Ivory Coast. ASEC Mimosas had been a launching pad for several top African talents, and it was here that Tiote would hone his skills. Tiote's time at ASCC was crucial in shaping his career. He developed into a strong, combative midfielder with an exceptional work rate. His ability to break up opposition attacks, his toughness in midfield, and his ability to pass the ball made him stand out among his peers. But more than anything, Tiote's approach to the game was characterized by his physical presence. He was unafraid to get stuck in, and his drive to succeed became a defining trait. His performances at ASCC didn't go unnoticed. European scouts began to take an interest in the young Ivorian, and soon, Tiote's dream of playing abroad came true. In 2006, at just 20 years old, he made the move to Belgium to play for Roda JC, a club in the Eredivisie. His time in Belgium was pivotal in his development as a player. Tiote's talent began to shine through in the more competitive leagues of Europe, and his reputation as a tough, no-nonsense midfielder began to spread. It was at Roda JC that Tiote's true potential started to emerge. He was key to the team's midfield, helping to anchor the side and provide the balance between attack and defense. His performances earned him a move to the Netherlands top league, where he joined FC 20 in 2008. It was with FC 20 that Tiote's game really blossomed. Under the management of Steve McLaren, Tiote became an integral part of the team that would go on to win the Eredivisie title in the 2009 to 2010 season. His combination of energy, tactical intelligence, and physicality in midfield was a key factor in 20's success. It was at this point that Tiote began to attract the attention of top clubs across Europe. In 2010, after a standout season with FC 20, Tiote made the leap to the Premier League, signing with Newcastle United. The transfer to one of England's most passionate and fan-driven clubs marked the beginning of a new chapter in Tiote's career. Tiote arrived at Newcastle in 2010, just as the club was finding its feet back in the Premier League after a relegation scare. Under manager Alan Pardew, Tiote quickly became a fan favorite with his tireless work in midfield. The Premier League, with its intensity and physical demands, suited Tiote's style of play perfectly. He was known for his ability to break up attacks, make crucial tackles, and distribute the ball efficiently. His first season was a revelation. Tiote was at the heart of Newcastle's midfield, helping the club to a surprisingly strong finish in the Premier League. He had become a crucial part of a team that exceeded expectations and helped Newcastle to a 12th place finish in the 2010 to 2011 season. However, it was his performance against Arsenal in 2011 that would etch his name into Premier League history. In one of the most dramatic games ever played, Newcastle came from 4-0 down to draw 4-4 with Arsenal, and Tiote scored a stunning long-range goal, one that would forever be remembered by Newcastle fans. Throughout his time at Newcastle, Tiote remained a consistent and key player. His leadership, defensive qualities, and never-say-die attitude made him a fan favorite. His reputation as a midfielder who could control the game and dominate the middle of the park grew with each passing season. Tiote had truly made his mark in the Premier League, and his performances earned him a place in the hearts of Newcastle supporters. Tiote's career at Newcastle lasted for 6 seasons, during which he became one of the Premier League's most respected midfielders. He was more than just a player. He was a symbol of resilience and determination. He played with a physical style that left fans in awe, but it was his humility off the pitch that made him beloved by teammates and supporters alike. In 2017, after leaving Newcastle, Tiote sought a new challenge in China, signing with Beijing Enterprises FC. Sadly, this would be the final chapter of his career, as his life was tragically cut short during a training session that same year. His untimely death shocked the footballing world, but his legacy as a warrior in midfield, a leader, and a man who gave everything for his teams would live on in the hearts of those who watched him play. It was May 5th, 2017, a seemingly ordinary day on the training pitch at Beijing Enterprises FC, where cheick Tiote had moved after leaving Newcastle United. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a gentle warmth over the field. The sound of footballs thumping against the turf and the shouts of players echoed in the air, yet none of them knew that this was the day their lives would change forever. Tiote, the Ivorian powerhouse, had been at the club for only a few months. He was known for his tireless runs, his ability to break up attacks, and his defensive presence that seemed unshakable. After a long and distinguished career in the Premier League with Newcastle United, the 30-year-old midfielder was seeking a new chapter in China. But there, on this morning, the pitch would witness an event that none of his teammates would ever forget. The training session had begun as any other, with Tiote fully immersed in the drills. His usual tenacity and focus were present as he moved through passing routines, tackling, and running up and down the field. Tiote, a physical presence on and off the ball, was never one to shy away from a challenge. The intensity of his play remained unchanged even in the twilight of his career. He was pushing himself, as always, perhaps a little harder than most of his teammates. But then, as the session drew to a close, something went terribly wrong. Tiote was participating in a routine passing drill when, in a moment that would later haunt everyone present, he suddenly fell to the ground. His body went limp, and he lay there motionless. At first, his teammates assumed it was a simple collapse from fatigue. They rushed over to help him back to his feet, perhaps thinking he was dizzy from overexertion. However, when they touched him, they realized something was horribly wrong. His skin was cold, his breathing shallow, and his face was ashen. Panic began to rise among the players as they desperately called for medical assistance.
Staff rushed onto the field, quickly assessing Tiote's condition. CPR was administered, and the ambulance was called to the scene. The players watched, helpless, as their friend and teammate lay unconscious, surrounded by medical professionals. Time seemed to stretch on forever. After what felt like an eternity, Tiote was rushed to the nearby hospital. But despite the valiant efforts to save him, it was too late. Cheick Tiote had passed away, just hours after stepping onto the pitch for what seemed like an ordinary day of training. News of Tiote's death spread quickly, shocking the football world to its core. Tributes began pouring in from across the globe, from his former teammates at Newcastle, to players in the Ivory Coast national team, to fans who had followed his career and admired his spirit. The footballing community was united in grief. But perhaps no one felt the loss more deeply than the teammates who had been with him that fateful morning. They were left struggling to comprehend how a man so full of life, strength, and determination had been taken so suddenly. The cause of Tiote's death was later confirmed as a heart attack. The news stunned everyone who had seen him in action just hours earlier. The image of him full of life and energy forever ingrained in their minds. His passing raised questions about the unpredictability of life and the fragility of the human body, even for someone as physically gifted as Tiote. Tiote's death would leave a hole in the hearts of all who had known him. His powerful tackles and energetic displays in the midfield had been the heartbeat of many of his teams, and he had become a beloved figure in both Newcastle and the Ivory Coast. His death was not just the loss of a footballer. It was the loss of a father, a husband, a brother, and a friend. The tributes continued to pour in, with fans and fellow players alike remembering Tiote as a player who gave everything on the pitch. His name would be forever linked to the battles he fought, the the tackles he made, and the unforgettable moments he created on the field. But beyond his footballing ability, those who knew him best remembered him as a humble, down-to-earth man with a fierce love for his family and a strong sense of community. Tiote's death, while tragic, underscored the unpredictability of life. It was a reminder that the sport we love is more than just a game. It's a part of a bigger story, one that can change in an instant. For Tiote, his story would end too soon, but his memory would live on, both on and off the pitch. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment to my channel for more story.